Hey everybody, I hope you're all well rested from a busy Christmas and holiday season. So happy New Year. I've been, well, up to something. So it's time I show yous what I was up to. Ta-da! Everybody, this is Big Bertha 1.0. You might have remembered from previous videos that I had a smaller enclosure, but I have too many machines. What a problem to have, eh? But when I'm switching them out for particular jobs, because there's particular lasers and stuff that I like to do with each and every one of them, I needed more room. Okay, let's pause right here just for a sec. So things you need to know before buying a laser engraver. First of all, you want to make sure that they have a website. Buy direct. So if you go through a third-party seller, you may not get the support that you need. And that was what I mean by after purchase support. If you have any issues, you want answers to get your machine up and running. The next thing is check to see if your manufacturer is innovative, if upgrades and accessories and tutorial videos are available for you. Now, I realize some of you have garages that you can use, and that's great. But I'm in Canada, where our average temperature so far this week has been minus 21 degrees Celsius. Even the bunny rabbits are hopping slowly. My husband had been squirreling away some 2x4s for quite some time, so I decided to borrow them and build myself a new table. Now, eventually, I'd like to cut out this portion and make a platform that would raise and lower, but everything's on a budget, and I need to get back to work. So, not only do lasers stink, and you need a good exhaust system for them, they're very harmful for your eyes as well. So, make sure you have proper eye protection, which is another reason why I built a bigger enclosure, is because the laser's beam reflects off of surfaces. Now, SculptFun had sent me an S30 Pro 10-watt laser with the Y extensions to test out about a year ago. I'm not going to lie, this has been my main workhorse for my sign shop. I am really impressed with the linear rail system that you'll see at the very front of my machine there. With the 10-watt, beautiful, absolutely beautiful detail. So I was a little apprehensive of doing this. I added the XY extensions. So it takes up about 4 foot by 4 foot on my new table. I've just found I've been doing a lot larger projects like cornhole boards, their scoreboards, also 6-foot porch sitters, 6-foot growth charts. So for me, it really was time for me to extend my machine. Now you don't have to. I did all of these, well, yes, with the Y extension, but you can do that with the smaller machines. You can check out video 37 on how to tile your artwork in order to do these larger projects. So I'm using a 6-inch Vivo Sun air exhaust system, but I've also installed a backdraft damper right in here. So that'll keep any of our cold northerly winds, keeps the cold out. I have my air exhaust underneath my table, and so it doesn't cause any vibration. And it's attached to a board there, and I have a dryer vent system that automatically closes, and there's also screens to keep any birds or rodents from coming into your room. So for now, I have lots of room for my extended SculptFun, and I can switch out any machine to run simultaneously beside it. Eventually, I will have shelves underneath, and they'll each have their own enclosures, so I don't have to switch out on the top surface. So I decided to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing by wrapping it with flat black vinyl because of the laser's reflection. So the very front portion will open and close, but it also slides back to give me access to put in larger materials. Same with the side panels. Now this bottom portion here allows for airflow, but I think I'm just going to use a vinyl welding curtain there, and that will give me easy access to any power switches. So yes, any enclosure cannot be airtight. You have to allow for airflow. And I prefer my airflow to come from the front. Another important thing is to allow for easy access and to allow for raising and lowering your machine. So by easy access, for example, on the back of my OLM3 is the YRR rotary switch and plug. So I'm going to need to be able to access that. Well, I picked the carcass clean of my very first enclosure, and by using the 3mm Coroplast, which is corrugated plastic, and frosted plexiglass at the back to allow light in, I used the J-Track PVC shelf molding. So I put that along the top and bottom of any access areas that I wanted, and then I measured what height I would have to cut these pieces at and made pieces that I could slide open and closed. Now let's move on to what else you'll need to know about laser engravers. So there are 12-volt machines and there are 24-volt machines. Now there's lots of accessories and modules available to upgrade your machine, but some accessories only work with their brand. They're wired differently or they have different plugs. You can always upgrade your laser, but watch what voltage it is. If it's a 12 volt, it won't work on a 24 volt machine and vice versa. You can't add a router to a laser engraver, but you can add a laser to a CNC machine. Laser engravers are just not built strong enough, and they need an automatic Z height adjuster. Now let's go over laser modules so you guys do not get ripped off. Most companies have now switched to the actual output. So some companies have not, so beware. Some that they advertise that are 20 watts are only 1.6 watts, and some that they advertise at 40 watts are only 5.5 output. So it's the output that you're looking for. Most lasers now boast an engraving speed of about 20,000 millimeters per minute. That I've never gone that fast. Okay, the fastest I've gone, I think, is 6,000 millimeters per minute. It depends on the type of laser, the power that you have, and the type of material that you have. So don't expect that you're going to be going at 20,000 millimeters a minute right out of the gate. Now, this should be included in your laser specifications. For example, a 10 watt has 2 laser modules in it that uses a mirror to focus it into one laser beam. And it should also have the laser focus measurements. The most common lasers now for sale you'll see are 20 watt and 22 watt, which have 4 laser modules and a mirror to focus that beam. Now, every time you go up in size, you'll also get a bigger laser beam, which can affect your finer detail. So make sure you're checking what their focal point of that beam is. Right now is a great time to get a 10 watt machine or a 20 watt machine because they're innovating these lasers all the time. You can get dual power lasers that you can switch on and off to a 20 watt to a 40 watt, or dual lasers with infrared on them as well. Infrareds are used for high-speed marking of metals or plastic, but they can't really cut. So a lot of companies have added the infrared lasers that you can add to your machines as well, so you can switch out. Now, if you're looking for something for higher speed cutting, you may be looking for a CO2 machine. Okay, it will engrave much faster than a diode and be able to cut through thicker materials, but it comes with a hefty price tag, and you'll probably have to invest in a water chiller and a few more other things. Because CO2 machines come fully enclosed, you may be limited on the size of the material that you want to do. If you're looking to be able to cut thick metals, then you'll be wanting to look up plasma cutters. If you're wanting to do deep scoring or cutting very thick material, well, you're going to be looking for a CNC, which houses a router. So if you decide to go up in power, remember your laser modules are going to get larger as well. So you're going to lose some of that engraving space that you had before. So I'm actually upgrading my 12-volt machine to a 24-volt machine. So I'm going from a 4-pin plug-in to an MR30 3-pin plug-in. So not all lasers are built the same. Don't think you can get a, off-brand and decide to plug it into your machine. You've got to do your research. And this is a whole nother type of power plug to a laser module. And if I pull this rubber cap here, that's the integrated air assist. And we're going to go over what air assist is now. So I attach an air line to this module by removing this rubber plug and pressing down with 2 fingers and pushing in the air line, and it will lock in place. Air assist comes pretty standard on laser modules and machines now, but if you didn't, you are able to buy the tips and modify it yourself to add an airline. Just make sure that any tip you order isn't longer than your focusing tool. So if your machine does not come with a pump, you're going to have to purchase one. And I actually have the aquarium pump, and it came with the splitter regulator manifold that I could do it to a number of machines. And I keep it up and raised off of the table so it doesn't cause any vibration. So you don't want your air pump on your table. It can cause shock sensors to go off or alarms on your machine, and it will stop engraving midway through a project. I thought I'd share just exactly how loud it can be with the air exhaust, the air assist, and the air fan of the laser module itself. The fan on your laser module itself, its main purpose is to keep your laser cool. So air assist is actually going to help prevent a lot of soot and residue buildup inside the laser module or inside and dirty your lens. Some manufacturers suggest having air assist off when you're engraving and having it on when you're cutting. I actually have it on all the time when I'm engraving and when I'm cutting. Now, I like to do deep and dark engravings. Okay, so the air assist is going to help keep that soot from building up on the tip while I'm engraving. It's also going to move the soot out of the way on the material. If you plan on doing MDF, it's the worst material you could ever do, but there's a lot of soot, smoke generated by it. So that's again why you're using an air exhaust to take out the smoke, because smoke can defocus a laser. Charring and scorching is actually controlled with the power of the laser, at what power you are engraving or cutting at, or the amount of passes that you're using. For example, I went at 2000 millimeters per minute at 95% power of my 10-watt module. And that's just showing that just with a little bit of sanding, okay, you can get rid of that charring and scorching, and it'll bring out the detail of your engravings even better. So I like to sand with an orbital sander and with 120 grit sandpaper, or even sometimes 220 grit sandpaper, about half speed, because you don't want to take too much of your top layer off. And then I like to just give that a little blowout with my air compressor and little gun there. Air assist is crucial if you're going to do cutting, okay, because you are using a constant power mode of your laser module for cutting. The air assist is going to actually help out snuff out any possible fires allows airflow for cleaner cuts, but never, ever leave your laser unattended. Now here I'm showing you a honeycomb board and my material is fastened down. I have another video all on cutting. We won't get into too much of that today. And air assist is crucial to make sure your lenses stay clean. Some lasers actually have two lenses. One's located at the bottom of the laser module, and some come with dust lens that are integrated into your air assist nozzle. You're going to need to clean your laser lenses often, okay? Especially after a big engraving job, before a big engraving job, or before cutting. You're going to see less power from your laser because of the soot buildup on the lens or even in the fan. So you can actually use an air can to blow out your laser module itself. Okay, you want to keep that nice and clean and keep it from overheating. Most lasers come with extra lenses right now or extra dust lenses, and you'll get gaskets as well. Now, I do suggest you ordering extra to have on hand. If there's a speck of dirt on your laser lens or you haven't cleaned the soot off properly, you're not allowing the laser beam to go through the lens properly, and it can crack your lens. So you may have a long wait from overseas, and then you're going to have too long a downtime. And I'm just showing you here that I fried one of my gaskets that covers one of my dust lenses in the air assist nozzle itself. It decided to flip up as I was twisting the nozzle back on. So it blocked the laser lens. I didn't have any laser lens coming through at all. And then there was a big flash of light because it fried my gasket there. So take care when you're reassembling your laser again. So I am going to speed up this part here. So you'll use their little tool just to loosen off that screw. And that's what really holds it on. When you twist it back on, you're not going to twist it super tight because you don't want to squish that green gasket. Okay, so you'll just do it to where the air line needs to be on the right hand side. Okay, not super tight. And then you'll use that screw to tighten it. So here's the bottom lens of the module. So the kit comes with a wrench to be able to take that off. I'm going to remove this piece here. So this is what I classify as a piece for the air nozzle. It has the dust lens inside of it. And then there's a lens at the bottom of the laser itself. And in here is where that pesky little green gasket has to sit to give an airtight seal. So when it flipped up and blocked the laser beam, it actually burnt through the gasket and actually burnt my dust lens. So it cost me a dust lens as well. So take your time. I've taken some rubbing alcohol and poured it into the cap. And now I'm just going to take a Q-tip, dip that into the rubbing alcohol, and using the tip with the rubbing alcohol, wipe both sides of the lenses, and then take the clean, dry tip and gently wipe any residue. Okay, so do both sides and then do the bottom of the laser and make sure to clean out the nozzle as well. It may have some soot buildup. Now you hardly saw any residue on the Q-tip of the lens that I cleaned, but look what I pull out of the air assist nozzle itself. So that's why air assist is crucial. It's going to keep your lenses clean and it's going to extend the life of your laser module. So make sure you get that little green gasket sitting flat. Maybe take some tweezers if you have to make sure that that is in there perfectly flat. And then holding the laser upright. Okay, if it slips on you a little bit, just start again. Make sure the gasket's still in the same spot. Okay, so you're just going to screw that on until you start to feel it slightly tighten. I'm not doing it very tight at all because we don't want to squish that gasket. And then you're going to feel where it wants to stop on its own. So it still may be a little loose, but we're just going to take that nozzle to the right-hand side. Okay, so it's going to be the fixing screw that goes to the left-hand side of that nozzle that really holds it into place tightly. And tighten that all up, and you're all good to go to put it back on your laser machine. Okay, now your air hose or the power plugs themselves may not be long enough for you to raise it above your machine. And Sculpin actually recommended to have it halfway on your table. Nope, I just cut a plastic straw, put that into the one air hose, connected another air hose so I don't have it sitting on the table. It is underneath my table and not causing any vibration at all. And I just have to shorten the air hose just a little bit to make sure it is blowing efficiently. You are going to need a computer to run your laser engravers. They just don't magically work on their own. Now I'm using a desktop computer. Now allow for ample airflow so your desktop computer does not overheat. A laptop might work, it does for some people, but it might not have enough processing speed or memory for the programs that you're going to need. And good practice is to make sure it's on a separate outlet from your laser engraver. And your laser engraver is not plugged into the same outlet that you have your air exhaust or your air pump on. It can cause interference, which might show up in random lines in your engraving. So eventually I am going to install an 8-inch exhaust fan, but right now the 6-inch is plenty enough. So just a little note there, it is cheaper to buy the whole kit, the air exhaust, the dryer vent hose, and the air scrubber comes as a complete kit. Now, if you go on the SculpFun site, I purchased the 22-watt Ultra upgrade to take my machine from a 12-volt to a 24-volt so it would run a 22-watt laser, and they sent me an S9 Ultra upgrade kit. So that's how it comes, but they have it advertised for the S30 series. Well, the cord is not even near long enough to work with your XY extension kit. Okay, plus it came with a 4-pin plug, the original S30 XY extension kit, and I needed the 3-prong plug. So I guess SculpFun has realized a lot of people are making this mistake, so they have had it added a wiring harness to their website. And even though the pictures don't change from the 4-pin harness, they will send you the proper one with the M30 plug. So this is the upgraded motherboard, and it will take a machine to wireless, although I suggest always using a USB connection in case your Wi-Fi goes down mid-engraving. They've also improved the air pump plug so that you can run it with, say, Lightburn or Laser Gerbil and be able to turn it on and off through that program. And I explain how to do that in my video number 32. So here's the motherboard. It's nicely color-coded, so you really can't screw up plugging anything in. Firmware comes installed on the motherboard. Firmware is what's going to run your machine. Okay? Some machines have an SD card that the firmware is installed, and it has to be installed in the machine to run, but not on this SculpFun. Now, if you're having a problem with your motherboard or your machine doing some things, sometimes support might suggest to update your firmware. So this is what the firmware is talking about, not updating the software or any programs. This is where your firmware is. So I'm recommending that you look for a machine that has a USB connection, but also comes with limit switches. Okay, so this is considered an open rail laser machine, and there is a limit switch at the X and Y positions. So this will home your machine accurately each and every time, which is crucial for repeat jobs, batch jobs, doing more than one pass, doing more than one cutting pass. Okay, limit switches, awesome. Now there's lots of videos out there on how to assemble your machine. Make sure you're going to your manufacturer's site for their actual tutorial videos. And I'm going to tell you what they kind of leave out. If you expect precision out of your machine, then you're going to have to be precise when you're building it. So make sure your table is level. After your build, make sure your laser machine is level. Before building it all, test out your gantry with one of the rails to make sure it will slide through seamlessly, that the wheels are lining up to the V groove in the 2020 rails. Now this is the bottom view of the gantry, so this is why it's easier to do this before fully assembling to make sure it's running smoothly. If it's not, then you adjust this eccentric nut on the bottom. Make sure your X rails are the same size, line them up together, and make sure your Y rails are the same size before you assemble the whole machine. Now you're not going to tighten those screws yet. Okay, you're basically going to put it together. Do not tighten these tight, because the first thing you need to do is to make sure your machine is square. And to check that, you measure corner to corner. So the first time I built it with the XY extension, I was actually 4 millimeters out. Tore the machine apart, realized that the back rail was about 1 millimeter shorter than the front rail. So I added a washer to the back inside of the rail to make them an even length. Installing the limit switches, the laser module, and cords are the very last thing you should do. Now this is probably the most difficult part of assembling your laser, is making sure the gantry runs and comes home parallel. So we're going to go over tightening belts. They should be snug but not twang, and your laser gantry should move freely. If it's too tight, you're going to burn out your stepper motor. So I added washers to the front and back, and I cut the belts to the exact same length. I even counted the amount of teeth to make sure they were even on each side of what was coming out the back of my laser engraver. Using a white Stabilo pencil, I measured both left and right hand sides for a precise measurement. Using a ruler, I would hold that up to the measurement and just bring it to where the wheel was touching that tick mark on both sides. And then I clamped them in place. So I found the binder clips worked best than the bigger clamps. Just be careful. Sometimes they like to fly off. Now that your laser gantry is secured, you can tighten your front belts. And I ended up with the same amount of teeth coming out the very front. So I knew my gantry and the stepper motors were lined up exactly to the same set of teeth. So it will run parallel each and every time, coming home, right and left, lining up perfectly. So if you're engraving and cutting and your designs are going skewed, your circles aren't round, this could be very well your problem that your gantry is not running parallel. Now, the very first thing you should do with your laser, and we're going to go over focusing in a second, is run a line accuracy test. Okay, that's going to tell you how your belts are, if your machine is square, okay, and if your gantry is running parallel. So I don't trust my eyes. I have a slight stigmatism in my eyes, so that circles kind of look a little oval to me. So with the line accuracy test, use a ruler as well. You're going to see just exactly how accurate it is. And pinpoint precision depends on your focusing. So some lasers have kickstands, some come with plastic cards, and some come with aluminum focusing tools. So you'll either lower your laser just so it touches your focusing tool, or if you're using a kickstand, just as it touches the material. But don't focus just in one area. Okay, your material may have a little warp to it, or if you're using live edge, of course, it's not going to be completely even. You need to focus in a number of spots. Okay, for instance, this is a very long board, so I am going to focus front and back, left and right. Now, make sure your machine is turned off if you're moving the gantry like this to do this. Now, with the XY extension, I don't suggest doing this at all. Okay, your machine needs to be powered off. You need to do it slowly so you don't cause any electrical charge and you're not frying your motherboard. Now, with this particular board, I was a little low to the back, so I will just readjust that. I'm not going to tighten the laser. I'm just going to take a little piece of wood to wedge up the front of it to bring the front of the board up a little bit so that I have a nice even focus all the way along the board while I'm engraving. And this is crucial to do if you plan on doing any cutting, and use a honeycomb board to secure your material and make sure it's level as well. A good pair of laser engraving glasses are going to help you see your pinpoint precision better. Yeah, the ones that come with the lasers, not so great, but hey, they're great for me recording my videos. Now we're finally to software. Okay, so you need a software to run your laser machine, and a very popular one is Lightburn. So you can get a free trial for 30 days. But at the time of this video, it was a $99 US dollars for a license to be able to use it. So the advantages of Lightburn is you can design right into it. So if you don't have design programs, you can use Lightburn. You can design in layers, and you can give those different layers different properties. Now, it didn't work well for me. That's not saying that it won't work well for you, and the Lightburn forum and their texts are super helpful. But I do very large engravings and very timely engravings, so I went with Laser Gerbil. Laser Gerbil is completely free to download and use on your computer. I found it very easy to use. Now, I've had a sign shop, so I had a lot of design programs already, because you can't design right in Laser Gerbil. You need design programs. And what I mean by programs is like CorelDRAW, SignMate. A lot of people use Inkscape, which is free as well. Photo editing software like GIMP is free as well. I will be going over designs in videos, but basically in my software that I already had, my design programs, I would just export as PNGs into Laser Gerbil, and away I went. So I hope I haven't scared you, because you can create some beautiful things with your laser engraver, and I like to hand paint a lot of my laser engravings. So yes, you can create some beautiful things. You just need to do some research. And I have lots of tutorial videos on my channel, DiSignsCdn, so be sure to like and subscribe. I have tutorials on getting started in Laser Gerbil, how to do 2D signs, how to cut in Laser Gerbil, so be sure to check those out. So finally, after my XY extension and my 22-watt upgrade, I'm finally back to work. Not without some difficulties with the XY extension, and I'm going to share that in a whole other video, because this one's starting to get a little long. But this was my very first project off of that, and I'm very happy how that turned out. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope it inspires you. Now go create!